Ladies and gentlemen, when you look at the story of your life, you will realize there is always a central figure. The person whose choices shape the direction of the plot, whose decisions set the tone. For the entire narrative in a movie, that's the main character. In your life, that's supposed to be you. Yet so many people go through their entire existence letting other people, circumstances, or past events take that role. They live like a background extra in their own film, reacting to whatever is thrown at them rather than deciding where the story is going. Becoming the main character starts with something far deeper than changing your clothes, your job, or your surroundings. It begins with identity. It's about asking yourself, who do I believe I am, and not just at the surface level, but deep down, in the private conversation you have with yourself every single day. Most people don't realize that their current results in life, their finances, relationships, opportunities, and even their level of happiness, are not created by luck, hard work alone, or chance. Encounters, they are shaped primarily by self-image. Your self-image is like the role you've been cast to play. If you see yourself as someone average, you will unconsciously act in ways that keep you average. If you see yourself as someone who struggles, you'll make decisions that keep you struggling. It's not about what you consciously wish for. It's about what you subconsciously believe you deserve and are capable of. You can't escape the role you believe you are meant to play. If you want a different life, you must first become a different character in your own mind. Think about an actor preparing for a major role. They don't just memorize lines, they embody the character. They walk like them, think like them, dress like them, even when the cameras aren't rolling. They immerse themselves so completely in that identity that, for a period of time, they are that person. You have to do the same with the life you want to live. If you want to be a confident leader, you start carrying yourself like one before the promotion ever comes. If you want to be financially abundant, you begin thinking and making decisions from the mindset of someone who already is. If you want to be healthy and full of energy, you must adopt the habits and thought patterns of a healthy, energetic person before the results appear. The mistake most people make is thinking, I'll change when I get the result. They say things like, when I get the job, then I'll feel confident. Or when I'm making more money, then I'll be disciplined. Or when I'm in a relationship, then I'll love myself. But that's backwards. The result is not the cause, it's the effect. You can't wait for the role to be handed to you before you start playing it. You have to decide to step into that role now, long before the audience applauds. You have to rewrite your inner script because your outer world is just a reflection of the script you're running inside your mind. This means you must take control of your inner dialogue. Most people's self-talk is sabotaging them without them even realizing it. They constantly reinforce the wrong identity. I'm bad with money. I'm not good at talking to people. I'm unlucky in love. I can't stick to routines. I'm not a leader. Every time you say these things, even as a joke, you are programming your mind to keep proving them true. That's why you must be intentional with the language you use about yourself. Start speaking the lines you want your character to say. I'm the kind of person who follows through. I make wise financial decisions. I attract great opportunities. I am disciplined. I inspire others. At first, it may feel strange or even false, but that's only because it's a new role and you haven't rehearsed it enough yet. Once you start to shift your self-image, everything else changes without as much force or struggle. You'll notice your posture changes, you'll stand a little taller, your decisions will change, you'll take opportunities you would have once avoided. Your habits will change. You'll start doing things that support your new role without feeling like it's a battle of willpower. That's because identity drives behavior. When you see yourself differently, you act differently, and when you act differently, your life begins to align with that new image. There's another critical part of becoming the main character. You must stop seeking constant validation from the audience. In your life, the audience might be your family, friends, co-workers, or social media followers. If you live only for their approval, you're not the main character. You're a performer in someone else's production. The main character acts according to their own vision, values, and goals. They don't wait for a standing ovation before taking action. They understand that not everyone will agree with their choices, but they make them anyway because they know who they are becoming. And make no mistake, this is not about arrogance or pretending to be something you're not. It's about making a conscious choice about who you are and living in alignment with that choice, even before the world recognizes it. You will have moments when the old identity tries to pull you back, when fear or self-doubt creeps in. That's normal. Every great character faces moments of crisis in their story. The difference between the hero and the background extra is that the hero pushes forward, adjusting their mindset and returning to their vision no matter how many times they fall. When you fully accept that you are the one writing your script, the one playing the lead, you stop waiting for permission. You stop waiting for the right time. You realize that you are already in the movie, the cameras are already rolling, and the next scene is being written right now based on what you do next. Your self-image is the pen, your thoughts are the ink, your actions are the lines you deliver. If you don't like the plot so far, you don't need to scrap the whole story. You simply need to change the character you are playing. And the moment you make that shift internally, the world around you begins to rearrange itself to match the role you've chosen. Your thoughts are not random background noise floating around in your head. They are the blueprint for your entire life. Every single thing you've ever created, achieved, or experienced first existed as a thought. Before the house is built, there's a mental image of it. Before the business is launched, there's a concept in someone's mind. Before a relationship begins, there's a thought about connection. Thoughts are the root cause, the seed, from which every result in your life grows. This is where most people misunderstand the true power of thinking. They treat thoughts as harmless little clouds passing through the sky of their mind without realizing that each thought carries the potential to shape reality. You can't continuously plant seeds of doubt, fear, and limitation in your mind and expect a harvest of confidence, abundance, and freedom. The type of thought you plant determines the type of life you live. The truth is, the mind is always working. It's always producing images, interpretations, and narratives. And because the mind cannot stay still, it will fill itself with whatever you feed it. If you don't consciously choose your thoughts, they will default to whatever your environment, your past experiences, and the people around you have programmed into you. That's why so many people feel stuck. They keep repeating the same internal scripts they've been running for years, even if those scripts are sabotaging them. It's not enough to just think positively. Once in a while, you have to train yourself to direct your thinking toward what you actually want, like a captain steering a ship toward a chosen destination rather than letting the current drag it wherever it wants. If you pay close attention, you'll see how your thoughts trigger your feelings, and your feelings dictate your actions. If you wake up thinking, "Today is going to be stressful," your body will respond with tension before the day has even started. If you think, "I'm not capable of handling this," you'll feel anxiety, and your actions will likely be hesitant, incomplete, or self-sabotaging. On the other hand, if you start your day thinking, "I have the ability to handle whatever comes my way," you'll feel more confident, and that confidence will shape the way you speak, move, and make decisions. The chain is always the same. Thoughts lead to feelings, feelings lead to actions, actions lead to results. This means if you want new results, you must begin by planting new thoughts. One of the biggest shifts you can make is to stop obsessing over what you don't want. Most people spend the majority of their mental energy replaying problems, worrying about worst-case scenarios, or imagining all the ways things could go wrong. They may not realize it, but this is just mental rehearsal for failure. The mind doesn't distinguish between something vividly imagined and something actually experienced. It accepts both as reality. That's why elite athletes visualize their performance in detail before stepping onto the field. They're not daydreaming, they're programming their mind for success. You can do the same in your own life by deliberately thinking about what you want to happen, how you want to feel, and the kind of life you want to live. The more vivid and consistent these thoughts are, the more your subconscious mind begins to accept them as truth, and the more your behavior aligns with making them real. But here's the challenge. You can't just think about what you want once and then go back to your old mental habits. The mind works through repetition. Just as a muscle grows stronger through repeated exercise, your ability to think in alignment with your goals grows stronger the more you practice it. If you've spent years or decades thinking from a place of limitation, you can't expect to erase that in a week. You must actively replace the old thought patterns with new ones over and over until the new patterns take root. That's why affirmations, vision boards, journaling, and mental imagery are powerful tools. They keep your desired thoughts in the forefront of your mind, so they have a chance to reshape your subconscious beliefs. Another important aspect of mastering your thoughts is guarding your mental environment. You can't plant a healthy seed and then surround it with weeds and expect it to thrive. The weeds in your mental garden are negative influences, toxic people, constant bad news, and conversations that drain your energy. If you feed your mind a steady diet of complaints, gossip, and fear, your thoughts will naturally gravitate toward those directions. On the other hand, if you intentionally feed your mind with ideas, stories, and conversations that inspire, empower, and challenge you to grow, your thinking will reflect that higher quality input. Your mind is like soil. It doesn't care what seeds you plant, it will grow whatever you put into it. But it's your responsibility to choose seeds that lead to the life you actually want. Once you become aware of the creative power of your thoughts, you start to realize that nothing in your life just happens. You see the connection between the patterns in your thinking and the patterns in your results. You notice that the people who are consistently negative always seem to experience more negativity, while those who think expansively and with purpose tend to attract more opportunities. This isn't magic, it's simply cause and effect at work. The thoughts you dwell on most frequently become your expectations, and your expectations shape the way you interpret and respond to the world. Over time, those interpretations and responses create the life you live. This is why it's so crucial to become intentional with your mental focus. Every time you catch yourself thinking in a way that contradicts your goals, you have a choice. You can indulge that thought, letting it grow roots in your mind, or you can redirect it toward something that aligns with the future you want to create. At first, this takes conscious effort because your old patterns will try to pull you back. But with persistence, you'll notice that your mind begins to default to more empowering thoughts. And when that happens, your feelings shift, your actions shift, and your life begins to shift right along with them. Negative feelings are something every human experiences, yet most people misunderstand them. They think these emotions are permanent states or signs that something is deeply wrong with them. In reality, negative feelings are simply signals, much like the warning lights on a car's dashboard. They are not there to define you, they are there to inform you. They're telling you that you're out of alignment with your vision, that the way you're thinking about a situation is pulling you away from where you want to go. The problem is that many people mistake the signal for an identity. They feel fear and start saying, "I am anxious." They feel sadness and start saying, "I am depressed." They feel anger and start saying, "I am an angry person." The moment you attach "I am" to an emotion, you fuse it into your identity, and it becomes far harder to let go. To handle negative feelings effectively, the first step is to stop seeing them as enemies. They are not here to destroy you, they are here to guide you. Just like hunger tells you it's time to eat, discomfort tells you it's time to grow, and fear tells you you're about to step into unfamiliar territory. These feelings are indicators, but they are not meant to control the story. Too often, people get caught in the trap of resisting or suppressing their negative emotions, which actually makes them stronger. What you resist persists. If you push an emotion down without acknowledging it, it doesn't disappear, it just hides, waiting for another moment to surface, often in a more intense form. Instead of suppressing negative emotions, you need to learn how to observe them without becoming them. This means separating who you are from what you feel. You might say, "I am experiencing fear," instead of "I am afraid," or "I am feeling doubt," instead of "I am a doubtful person." This subtle shift in language keeps your identity intact while acknowledging the temporary nature of the feeling. It reminds you that emotions are like weather. They pass through, but they don't define the sky. When a negative feeling arises, ask yourself what it's trying to tell you. If you feel fear, maybe it's highlighting an area where you need to build more skill, gather more information, or simply take a courageous step forward despite the discomfort. If you feel frustration, maybe it's pointing to a gap between where you are and where you want to be. If you feel sadness, maybe it's signaling a need to release something you've been holding on to for too long. When you start treating emotions as messengers rather than punishments, you move from a reactive state to a creative state. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this teaching me?" Another reason negative feelings can be so powerful is that they are often amplified by the stories we attach to them. A person might feel a moment of nervousness before speaking in public, but then their mind starts adding a storyline: "I'm not good at this, everyone is judging me, I'm going to embarrass myself." The emotion itself might have been small, but the story magnifies it into something overwhelming. That's why it's so important to become aware of the narrative running in your head. If you catch yourself spiraling into a story that fuels the negative feeling, you have the power to interrupt it and replace it with a more empowering interpretation. One practical way to handle negative emotions is to physically move your body. Emotions live in the body as much as they do in the mind. That's why your posture changes when you feel sad or confident. Your body is reflecting your inner state. But it works in reverse too. Change your body and you can shift your emotional state. Stand tall, take deep breaths, move around, or engage in physical activity. These actions send new signals to your brain, helping to break the cycle of the negative emotion. Another key is not to let temporary feelings dictate permanent decisions. Far too many people quit a dream, end a relationship, or abandon an opportunity simply because they felt uncomfortable or afraid in the moment. But negative emotions, like waves, rise and fall. If you can learn to ride them out, you'll see that they eventually pass, and you'll still have the chance to make choices from a place of clarity instead of from a place of emotional turbulence. It's also worth remembering that negative feelings can be evidence that you're growing. If you never feel nervous, you're probably not challenging yourself. If you never feel uncertain, you're likely staying within your comfort zone. Growth often feels uncomfortable because it pulls you into uncharted territory. The first time you try something new, your brain naturally sends signals of caution, simply because it's unfamiliar. That discomfort isn't a sign to stop, it's a sign you're on the edge of expansion. There's a misconception that strong, successful people never feel negative emotions, but the truth is they feel them just like everyone else. The difference is they don't let those emotions take the wheel. They recognize the feeling, acknowledge its message, and then act in alignment with their vision rather than their temporary mood. They understand that emotions are part of the human experience, but they are not the decision maker in the journey toward the life they want. When you start viewing negative feelings as passing signals rather than permanent truths, you reclaim your power. You stop being a hostage to the ebb and flow of your emotions and start seeing them for what they really are: information. And once you have the information, you can decide what to do with it. You can use it to adjust your mindset, shift your focus, or take a different action that brings you closer to the life you want to live. Every great story is built from a script, and the life you live is no different. The reality you experience day after day is not just a random sequence of events. It's the result of the script you've been carrying in your mind, often without even realizing it. This mental script is made up of your beliefs, your self-image, your expectations, and the patterns you've been rehearsing for years. If the story isn't going the way you want, you don't fix it by wishing for a better ending. You fix it by rewriting the script that's been guiding your thoughts and actions. And just like an actor preparing for a role, you must practice your part over and over until it becomes second nature. Rewriting your script begins with deciding what you want the story to be. Most people skip this step. They know what they don't want, but they've never clearly defined what they do want. That's like an author sitting down to write a novel and only knowing what plot twists to avoid, without ever deciding the plot they're aiming for. If you don't choose your story consciously, you'll keep replaying the old one by default. This is why clarity is so important. You need to create a clear picture of the person you want to be, the life you want to live, and the way you want to feel on a daily basis. The clearer the image, the easier it is for your mind to start aligning with it. Once you have that vision, the next step is mental rehearsal. You don't just think about the new script once and expect it to replace the old one. You revisit it daily, vividly, and with emotion. See yourself in your mind's eye living the life you want, acting as the person you want to become. Feel the confidence, the joy, the peace, the freedom, whatever emotions are tied to that version of yourself. When you rehearse these images and feelings over and over, your mind begins to accept them as familiar, and what's familiar becomes comfortable, and what's comfortable becomes normal. This is how you take something that once felt impossible and make it part of your identity. Affirmations are another powerful way to rewrite your script. Words have incredible power, not because they're magic in themselves, but because they shape the way you think and feel. When you repeat statements that align with your vision, phrases like, "I am disciplined and focused," or "I attract opportunities that align with my goals," you're not lying to yourself, you're conditioning yourself. You're planting seeds in your subconscious mind that will eventually grow into beliefs, and those beliefs will drive your actions. At first, these affirmations might feel uncomfortable or even fake, but that's only because they don't match your old script yet. Keep repeating them and you'll notice a shift, not just in your thinking, but in the way you carry yourself and respond to life. Visualization works hand in hand with affirmations. When you combine spoken words with mental imagery, you engage both the logical and creative parts of your brain. This makes the new script more powerful and more believable. Think about how athletes prepare for competition. They don't just train physically, they visualize themselves performing at their best. They see the movements, feel the sensations, and hear the sounds of victory before it happens. You can use the same principle in your own life by mentally living the scenes you want to create. So when the opportunity comes, your mind and body already know how to respond. Of course, a script is nothing without action. You can think, affirm, and visualize all day, but if your daily actions contradict the new role you've written for yourself, the old script will remain in control. Action is what breathes life into your vision. This doesn't mean you need to take massive leaps every day. It means you consistently choose actions that align with your new identity, even in small ways. If your new script is about being healthy, maybe that means choosing water over soda. If your script is about being confident, maybe that means speaking up in a meeting instead of staying silent. These small decisions compound over time, reinforcing the new story until it becomes automatic. Another important element of rewriting your script is surrounding yourself with people and environments that support the new role. If you spend all your time around people who are still living your old script, it will be much harder to sustain the changes you're making. The conversations you engage in, the content you consume, and the environments you spend time in all influence the lines in your mental script. Seek out influences that remind you of your new story and encourage you to keep moving forward, even on days when you feel tempted to go back to old habits. It's also worth noting that your old script will try to resurface, especially in moments of stress or uncertainty. The brain loves familiarity, and it will try to pull you back into patterns it knows well. That's why consistency is key. Even when you feel like nothing is changing, even when it feels repetitive, you must keep rehearsing the new story. Every repetition strengthens the neural pathways that support your new identity, making it harder for the old one to take over. Think of this process like editing a film. You might have hours of footage from your past, scenes that you don't want to define you anymore. You can't erase the fact that those scenes exist, but you can choose which clips make it into the final cut. You can rewrite the dialogue, reshoot certain moments in your mind, and keep editing until the story reflects the character you've chosen to become. The more you do this, the more your life starts to match the new script, not because the outside world magically changes overnight, but because you've changed the way you think, act, and respond, and that changes everything.